I'm not sure if anybody's watching these videos, and to be honest, I'm not producing them to be watched by people. I'm just documenting my process as I go through this. What I did was when I heard that the road policy, or the unsealed road maintenance policy, was coming up for renewal, I thought this was an opportunity to fix this problem once and for all. So I wrote a letter to the councillors saying that the current policy was illegal, and that under the Code of Conduct, if they voted for it, they could be subject to a Code of Conduct. So in response to that, they voted to put together a workshop and get legal advice. Now, I understand that they've got the legal advice. I haven't seen it yet. I've put in a Gipper to get a copy of it. I haven't heard back about that. But with the workshop, even ChatGPT acknowledges that council staff use workshops to really push their narrative. So I emailed the councillors, even though I wasn't invited to participate in the workshop. I emailed the councillors just to make sure that they at least had one resident perspective on this. So, having spent the last 5 years fighting this, I think I have a pretty good handle over the law and the history of how this policy's evolved. So in this video, I thought I would run the letter I sent to the councillors through ChatGPT to get its thoughts on how I did, and the soundness of my arguments. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy in, here's the document that I sent to them. I originally set out to have it as 2 pages. It ended up going to 5. This stuff, it's just listing the roads, because council don't even have a record, or they claim to not have a record of which roads are subject to this. So it took up half a page just to list the roads, but it had to be done. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Now, this isn't staged. I haven't run this before. I don't know what it's going to say. So even though I was not invited to participate in the councillor workshop, I sent this letter to all councillors giving them my thoughts on the policy and how it needed to change. How would you rate my letter, and is it legally sound? Okay, let's see what ChatGPT has to say. All right, overall quality. Clarity, tone, firm but mostly respectful. Although phrases like willful blindness, hate the idea, bash to track through the bush could be taken as provocative by council staff and might make them defensive. Well, I think the council staff already have a siege mentality, so that's probably not going to make any difference. Evidence, you cite specific sections of the Road Act and Civil Liabilities Act, and you provide external references. Persuasive, strong. You identified legal risks, practical failures and reputational issues. I'd rate it 6 out of 10 for advocacy. A councillor who reads it closely will understand the issue well. If you tone down a couple of the emotionally charged phrases, it could edge closer to a 9 out of 10. Okay, let's have a look at the legal soundness. From what I can see, your legal analysis is largely correct and well grounded. Correctly identifies that Section 72 of the Roads Act is a consent provision, not a maintenance maintenance obligation, which is I think where the QPRC error originated in the first place. Correct that roads authorities cannot delegate maintenance to unapproved private individuals, and that Section 138 permits work only under authorisation, not general maintenance delegation. Correct that Civil Liabilities Act provides some immunity but does not excuse ignoring a known hazard indefinitely. Correct that council cannot close a road under section 38A. Potential minor legal caveats. While you correctly note council has no absolute statutory duty to maintain roads, courts have found councils liable in negligence if they fail to address known hazards in a reasonable time. You state this, but you might more clearly explain. Okay, so this is basically saying I didn't go far enough. So there are more obligations on council than I listed. You could clarify that responsibility for road safety is a practical and common law duty arising from ownership control rather than a direct statutory maintenance mandate. Okay, so it's not saying that anything that I've said is legally unsound, it's just saying I didn't go far enough. So how would I improve it? Tone moderation, legal reinforcement, a summary table, so an executive summary or a TLDR, I suppose. Executive summary, this is what it's saying. If you'd like, I could rewrite the letter for me. Well, I don't think that there's any point in rewriting it. It's already an 8 out of 10. The main thing that I wanted to make sure was that nothing in the letter that I put forward was legally unsound. So I've said to the councillors, this is what the legal situation is, and ChatGPT isn't saying anything that I've said is wrong. In fact, it only criticises me for not being strong enough in reinforcing this. Now, one of the other things that I did yesterday was ChatGPT used the word tell, which is an interesting word I'm going to add to my vocabulary, that there were 2 tells that from staff that indicate that they've got previous legal advice. And I had a thought about it, and there were 2 other tells that that I've experienced, which I wanted to run through ChatGPT, and it seems to have a pretty good handle of this whole subject now. So it knows who I am, knows what I've been discussing. And what it is was that I met with Rebecca Ryan, the CEO, the governance officer, Caitlin Flint, and Derek Tooth, who I think was an acting manager for roads. And there was the whole meeting was surreal. It was honestly surreal. But during the meeting, I actually had to force the council staff to open the policy that we were discussing. They wanted to discuss the policy without having it in front of them, and I don't think they'd read it. So we opened it up and we ran through it. And what happened was that there was this really weird situation where there's a table in the roads grading policy where category 10, which is the last category, it says that category 10 is not maintained. And the discussion was that if residents started maintaining the roads under section 138 authority, that there would be like a 2 category 10 roads. There would be a category 10A, which is not maintained by anybody, and a category 10B, which was resident maintained. And as soon as Rebecca Ryan realised this, she turned to Derek Tooth straight away and said, Derek, we cannot have a table that says there are resident maintained roads. It was surreal to watch. That it was Rebecca noticing there and then that the folly of all of this. So what I'm going to ask ChatGPT this is, when meeting with the council CEO and what's Caitlin Flint's and other staff, I asked the staff to open the unsealed roads tenants policy, and let's see, and asked if there was a road category that was formerly maintained by residents, would that mean that there were two types of category 10 road? The CEO then turned to staff and said, Derek, we cannot have any entry in this table for resident maintained roads. What do you think motivated her to say that openly? Okay, let's see what ChatGPT analyzes this. If we look at this exchange carefully, there are a few likely motivations for the CEO's direct statement. Legal risk management. By explicitly listing resident maintained roads in the unsealed roads maintenance policy, Council would be formally acknowledging a category of public road that it allows or expects residents to maintain. That would be a written admission of an arrangement that is likely unlawful under the Roads Act. Okay, well, there you go. And exposes Council to liability if something goes wrong. A resident's work causes an accident. The CEO may have been trying to ensure there was no documentary evidence that could be used later in a court or by an oversight body to prove Council sanctioned unlawful delegation of road authority. Okay, so this explains it all. That Council, they don't want to maintain these roads. They want people maintaining them off book. So willful blindness, that, ChatGPT didn't like me using the term willful blindness, but that's essentially what it is that it's the don't ask, don't tell mentality, that they want residents to illegally maintain these roads as long as it's not in any policy that they do it, because if it was in a policy, then there would be, Council would be screwed if it went to litigation. Okay, policy consistency and policy optics. A table that distinguishes between normal Category 10 roads and a resident-maintained Category 10 roads would highlight to councillors, the public and auditors, I don't know if these people have auditors, that Council treats some residents differently, potentially leading to accusations of unfairness and neglect. It could also trigger uncomfortable questions from councillors during meetings, forcing staff to publicly justify why they aren't fulfilling their role as a roads authority. Avoiding an audit trail. If resident maintained appeared as an official category, it would create a clear documented policy decision that could be scrutinised in a performance audit investigated by the New South Wales Ombudsman, they do bugger all, but anyway, or challenged in court. By keeping it informal, Council could maintain plausible deniability. Well, there you go. So really, why are councils telling people to do things that they require plausible deniability for? That we can say we never had a policy for that if challenges. Staff control of the narrative. The CEO may also have been signalling to staff that these arrangements could be handled quietly and informally, so the policy document remains clean. Okay, in short, it is likely she said it openly because she wanted to make crystal clear to her own team and to you, the Council must avoid putting anything in writing that could formalise an arrangement. If you want, I can explain. All right, so let's ask it, which begs the question, is it ever possible to have a codified resident road policy. Maintenance is a word I always have a problem with. I don't know why. All right. In New South Wales, given the way the Roads Act is written, a codified resident road maintenance policy, one that formally permits or assigns residents the responsibility of maintaining a road, public road, is essentially not legally possible without changing the legislation. Okay, so you can't do it. If council created a resident road policy, it would be illegal, and that would be a code of conduct problem for all of the councillors. So it's just not possible. Anyway, so that was one of the bizarre things that I witnessed. Okay, now another one was that, and it's kind of a moot point given what ChatGPT is saying here, that Derek Tooth, the acting roads manager, he actually, sometimes Derek can cut through things and say some smart things. And what he said was, he says, well, Gerard, look, what's it going to take for you to, agree to maintaining these roads? And I said, well, look, Derek, that's a great question, because no one had asked me that at that point, and I'd been arguing with these people for years. And I said, well, look, the first thing is there has to be a legal framework. It has to indemnify me just as it indemnifies you, that you have, qualified immunity. I need qualified immunity too, because I don't want to bankrupt myself if there's a road defect. So I want to be held to the same standard as you are. And really, that was pretty much it. I think I gave some more qualifications that, really related to indemnity. And then Rebecca Ryan said, well, look, Gerard, that's completely reasonable. And then Derek Tooth said, but they would never agree to that. Now, who's they? So Rebecca Ryan's the CEO, and one of her underlings is saying to the CEO, they would never agree to that. Well, the councillors are basically a puppet of the mayor, and the mayor just does whatever the CEO says. So who's they? So let's ask ChatGPT. So during these discussions, a council manager asked me what I would need to agree to maintain council's road. I responded, a legal that allowed me to do road maintenance legally and with the same indemnities as council. Spelled maintenance wrong again. The CEO responded that is more than fair, and the manager said they will never agree to that. Who do you think they are? Given the context, they almost certainly refers either to councillors as the governing body. Ultimately, councillors would have to approve the formal arrangements. This would mean taking on significant political risk. Okay, the state government agencies. So the state government or councillors' insurer legal advisors. So it could be any one of those three: the councillors, the state government, or the insurer, or the legal counsel. My read on the conversations, the council saying that is more than fair was likely a diplomatic way of acknowledging your position without committing to it. Fair enough. The managers, they will never agree to that, was a candid reality check, signalling that whichever group holds the ultimate approval power, likely the councillors plus insurer, possibly with state input, would not accept the political, legal and financial exposure required to allow that. Okay, so this whole issue is, in short, the decision makers above, the decision makers above management who could authorise a legally robust indemnified resident maintenance arrangement, but won't because it's politically or legally too risky. Okay, well, why is it too risky? It is too risky because given you or any resident a lawful indemnified authority to maintain a public road would shift a huge bundle of legal, financial and political liabilities that council insurers and state government don't want to touch. Here's the breakdown. Statutory breach risk, so it's basically breaching the law. Civil liabilities risk, work health and safety risk. Well, that was another thing Rebecca Ryan said. She's had discussions, in-depth discussions with people about this, because the council are responsible to safe work because roads are basically workplaces, and the CEO is personally responsible for this. So there you go, work health and safety, precedent and policy risk, political risk. In short, blah, blah, blah. To make your proposal lawful, they'd have to either formally employ or contract you under full council oversight or change state laws, which they don't have the ability to do. So, okay. So really, residents can't maintain roads. It's just not a thing. And they're allowing people to maintain roads off book, but they don't want to have a policy that does this. So let's ask one final question, because I think I'm basically out of credits. Let's say, if you were a councillor, what would you do to fix this issue? Would you retain the existing policy? Change it to ensure roads are kept safe by clearly differentiating between and repair, or add a resident road because this is what I see their options are. Just letting it go through as is, as it has been for years, kick the can down the road. I don't see how they can do that given all the issues that have been raised. Change it to make sure that council don't maintain roads, but they correct defects that are dangerous, or put in a resident road policy. And I think it's going to tell me what the legal ramifications are each of these. So let's see what it says. If I was a councillor and my goal was to fix the issue without leaving the community exposed to or the council in legal hot water, I'd go for option 2. Change the existing policy. That's exactly what I told the councillors. In my advice to them, they should do. Retaining the existing policy. Pros. Staff know it. Minimal practical political fallout among ratepayers who don't care about Category 10 roads. Okay, that's fair enough. Cons. Leaves council knowingly operating an unsafe and legally dubious arrangement, ongoing reputational and liability risks, does nothing for affected residents. Verdict. Not reasonable governance. It is essentially willful neglect. Okay, so leaving it as is would be willful neglect. All right. Change policy to separate maintenance from repair with a tick. Keeps council within the Roads Act. Sets a clear enforceable obligation on the council. Costs are limited. Politically defensible. Cons. Requires staff buy-in, and they may resist because it commits them to action they've been avoiding. Okay, now this is the interesting bit, right? Is that if there's a danger on the road and a resident maintains it and it goes to an employee, it all has to be documented now. So if the council employee makes a conscious decision to leave a danger unaddressed, that will all be explorable. So they won't be anonymous anymore. They won't be able to just hide behind policy and say, our policy is to not do anything about this, right? And they use an interesting wording. Mike Duff's used this. He says, I'm told that this is a Category 10 road. He doesn't say it is a Category 10 road, so they're all hiding behind each other. Now, if they implement this policy, they're not agreeing to maintain the roads because they don't want to spend the money, but they would be on the hook if they made a call and if it emerged that they were just basically just putting together a canned response that this isn't dangerous, then they could end up in deeper hot water, and they would be known. We would know which person is making the call. May require a better road hazard reporting and triage system. Well, I think there's a good reporting system. Michael Gozer does an amazing job on the help desk. He should be made CEO, in my opinion. I hope that before he leaves, he is made CEO. But he's got a great hazard reporting system in place. And I think he also triages them well. It's really when it goes to the road people, the managers there, that it just falls in a heap. And they're not going to want to do that. All right. Add a resident road maintenance policy. Pros. Empowers residents who are willing to be able to help. Could reduce short-term workload on council staff. Okay, the cons. Almost certainly unlawful. Unless they're made contractors or appointed as formal agents. Massive insurance and workplace health and safety exposure. Sets a dangerous precedent and invites inconsistency or inequality in service position. Verdict. Only viable if the state government creates a legal framework, which is unlikely in the near term. Okay, so, that's probably the worst possible option. My councillor's approach. Amend the unsealed roads maintenance policy so that maintenance refers to scheduled works. A separate clause obligates council to promptly mitigate known hazards. Okay, terrific. Implement a clear hazard reporting system. Retire the Crown Roads maintenance policy if it no longer serves. Yep, told them to do that too. Publicly reject informal resident road maintenance arrangements. Advocate at a state level for funding or legislative change to improve. Okay, terrific. Well, there you go. So really what ChatGPT is advising me to do, if I was a councillor, is exactly what I'm advising councillors to do. Now, I didn't write ChatGPT. Maybe you could argue that I've influenced it by giving it input, but really it's looked at my input and it's looked at all of the options. I haven't unlike the council staff who are trying to, use the councillors as puppets, right? I'm not trying to use the councillors as puppets. I'm giving them the information. I'm running it through ChatGPT to make sure that it's sound. That's not going to happen with what the council staff give. The council staff I probably won't give the councillors anything on the day. But if they do, it's not as if they're going to have it checked by ChatGPT for logical consistency. So anyway, hope that helps. Help me, given me a much better understanding. And yeah, let's see how it goes.